Every journey has a moment that changes everything. For Liz, it was the night her world fell apart. But this is not just a story of heartbreak. It's a story of courage, of rebuilding, and of discovering a love she never saw coming. Welcome to Liz's story, a reminder that even in darkness, a spark of light can lead the way. The village where Liz grew up was the kind of place where mornings began with the crowing of roosters and the echo of children's laughter carried across fields of red soil. Elizabeth, Liz, as she would later be known, was the second born in a family of 4 siblings. Her elder brother Joe was the quiet protector, always watching over his siblings with a seriousness that seemed beyond his years. The youngest were the twins, Caleb and Amanda, inseparable, mischievous, and full of boundless energy. Together, they formed a little army that kept their parents, Ruth and Sam, forever on their toes. Ruth and Sam were peasant farmers, hard-working souls who tilled their small piece of land with determination. They also ran a small grocery kiosk at the dusty roadside, selling tomatoes, onions, bananas, and whatever vegetables were in season. The kiosk barely made money, but it kept the family fed and gave them hope during difficult seasons. But theirs was not a peaceful homestead. Sam's father had been polygamous, and the 2 families, children from the first wife and children from the second, lived cramped together on a tiny portion of inherited land. Each side felt the other was taking more than their share. Arguments were frequent. Sometimes it was about boundaries, other times about who had used more firewood. Occasionally, the quarrels escalated into full-blown fights, with insults flying over the fence like spears. Many nights, Ruth would gather her children inside the mud-walled house and whisper, "Keep quiet, my little ones. Don't add fire to the flames." Liz remembered those nights, the pounding of her heart as raised voices echoed outside, the shadows of adults pacing angrily back and forth in the moonlight, and the comforting weight of her mother's arm wrapped around her. Despite the chaos around them, Ruth and Sam fought tirelessly to create a bubble of peace inside their home. They taught their children manners, respect, and the value of hard work. And work they did. Each morning, Liz and her siblings woke before sunrise. They washed their faces with cold water from a yellow jerrycan, ate sweet potatoes or leftover ugali, then began their 2-mile walk to school. The journey was long but familiar, past maize fields, through dusty paths, across a wooden footbridge that creaked under their feet. Liz always held Amanda's hand, while Joe kept watch from behind. Caleb usually led the way, swinging his lunch tin like a prized trophy. They laughed, shared stories, and sometimes raced each other just to beat the bell. After school, there were chores waiting. Joe chopped firewood. Caleb and Amanda swept the compound. Liz's duty was fetching water from the river. The river was almost half a mile away, its banks lined with reeds and small stones that bit into her feet. She balanced a 20-liter jerrycan on her head, her neck aching but her spirit steady. The walk back home was slow, but Liz always pushed through, humming softly to distract herself from the weight. Other evenings, she helped her mother at the kiosk. She arranged tomatoes into neat pyramids, wiped dust off the containers, and counted coins with her small but clever fingers. Ruth would often smile at her and say, "Liz, my daughter, you have golden hands. Everything you touch becomes beautiful." Liz would blush, pretending not to hear, but inside her heart warmed. It was true. She had a natural grace, a quiet tenderness, and a strength that showed even in her childhood. Life was simple, difficult at times, yes, but full of learning, laughter, and love. None of them knew then how much Liz's resilience, shaped in those early years of walking long distances and working tirelessly, would one day carry her through the darkest seasons of her life. By the time Liz reached her late teens, she had grown into a young woman with an effortless beauty, soft features, warm brown eyes, and a quiet confidence that made people pause when she spoke. Life in the village had shaped her into someone strong-willed but gentle, disciplined yet full of grace. She was admired, though she did not notice it. She wore her humility like a second skin. She had finished secondary school and often helped her parents run the kiosk, while saving money for a course she hoped to take one day. She dreamed of becoming a beautician, opening a place where women walked in tired and walked out transformed. Whenever she braided Amanda's hair or plaited the neighborhood girls, they would gasp at the neatness and artistry of her hands. Liz, You should open your own salon one day. People often told her. She would smile shyly. God willing, she would say. Yet life in the village rarely allowed such dreams to flourish easily. It was during this season of budding dreams and quiet responsibility that Richard re-entered her life. Richard had grown up in the same village. As children, they had played in the same fields, chased the same grasshoppers, and attended the same school. But as adults, their paths had drifted, until a chance encounter at the village shopping center brought them back into each other's orbit. He had returned from a nearby town where he worked odd jobs, taller, broader, with an easy smile and a confidence that was almost magnetic. "Liz, is that really you?" he asked one afternoon as she arranged tomatoes outside the kiosk. She looked up, surprised. "Richard? Long time." He grinned. "You've changed. You look grown." Liz laughed, brushing dust off her skirt. "And you look like trouble." They both laughed, and in that moment something subtle shifted, something neither of them acknowledged, but both felt. Richard started passing by the kiosk often. At first, he claimed he was only checking on his childhood friend, but soon his visits became more frequent. He helped Liz carry crates, ran small errands, or simply sat nearby telling stories about his time in town. Liz found him amusing. He had a way of making even simple things sound adventurous. He spoke of big plans, bigger dreams, and a future filled with possibilities. He would say, "Liz, we are not meant to stay in this village forever. Some people are meant for more." She listened, sometimes skeptical, sometimes inspired. The more time they spent together, the stronger the pull between them became. Richard had a charming way of talking, and he knew how to make a girl feel seen. When he finally confessed that he liked her, Liz blushed so deeply she thought she might melt. "I don't want to just be your friend," he said one evening as they walked toward the river. "I want more." Liz looked at him, unsure. "Richard, are you serious?" "I've never been more serious about anything." His confidence overwhelmed her gentle heart. She had never been pursued before, never felt this whirl of emotions rushing through her chest. Richard was older, worldly, and bold. He made her feel special, seen beyond the village routines that often dimmed her own dreams. Their relationship grew quietly at first. Secret glances, shared smiles, long conversations under mango trees. Soon, everyone in the village noticed. Even Ruth teased her. "Is Richard the reason you've been smiling so much lately?" she would ask with a knowing laugh. Liz would hide her face and run off, but inside, her heart was blooming. Months passed, and Liz began spending more time with Richard. She believed he loved her, truly loved her. He spoke about their future with enthusiasm, about building a life together, about starting a family. So when Liz discovered she was pregnant, her world paused. She sat under a guava tree the day she confirmed it, her hands trembling, her heart beating painfully. Not because she didn't want the child. She already felt love for the tiny life within her, but because she feared disappointing her parents. That evening, she gathered courage and told Richard. He was silent at first. Then he exhaled deeply, rubbed his forehead, and said, "Come live with me. Don't be afraid. I'll take care of you." His assurance felt like a lifeline. Liz believed him. She told her parents, who were shocked but supportive. They were disappointed, not in their daughter, but in timing, in circumstances, in the uncertainties ahead. But they knew Liz was responsible. They trusted her. Ruth cupped her daughter's cheek gently. "If he says he will take care of you, then go. But remember, my daughter, you always have a home here." Those words would mean everything later. With a small bag of clothes and a swelling hope for the future, Liz left her family home and moved into Richard's, into his father's compound where he had a modest house of his own. As she crossed the boundary into her new life, she whispered a silent prayer. "Let this be good. Let this be home." She had no idea she was stepping into one of the hardest seasons of her life. Richard's father's compound sat on a stretch of land bordered by tall, aging trees and a fence made of rusted tin sheets patched over the years. The compound housed multiple structures. The main house where Richard's parents lived, 2 small kitchens, a storehouse, and 2 mud-walled houses for the sons. Richard occupied the one farthest to the left. When Liz arrived with her small bag of clothes and trembling hopes, Richard tried to make the moment feel warm. "Welcome home," he said, opening the door for her. She smiled softly, stepping into the modest space. The house was small, 1 bedroom, a living area with 2 old chairs, and a curtain separating the kitchen space. But she didn't mind. She had grown up with less. What mattered was love, partnership, and a future. At least, that's what she believed. Richard's mother, Mama Joyce, was not as welcoming. She eyed Liz with a coldness that cut deeper than words. "So you're the girl," she said without smiling. Liz swallowed hard and forced a respectful nod. "Yes, Mama." Mama Joyce didn't respond. It was a chilly start, but Liz tried to stay hopeful. She woke early to help with chores, swept the compound, washed dishes, and even offered to help prepare meals. She wanted to show gratitude, to fit in. But every effort seemed to irritate Mama Joyce. "If you want to help, then help properly," she would snap. "Not like that. Who taught you to slice onions like a child? You're too slow. Go fetch water. At least that you can do." Liz endured it quietly, reminding herself that pregnancy heightened emotions and she needed peace. Richard wasn't much help. He had stopped spending as much time with her and began leaving early for casual work, returning late. When Liz attempted to tell him about his mother's harshness, he brushed it off. "You're imagining things," he said. "She's just strict. Don't take it personally." Liz let it go. She didn't want to create conflict. As Liz's stomach grew, so did the tension in the home. Her energy dropped, but expectations remained the same. She fetched water, cleaned, cooked, and endured rude remarks. One afternoon, when Liz paused to catch her breath while sweeping, Mama Joyce barked from her veranda. "You're already lazy, and the child isn't even here yet. How will you manage twins?" Liz froze. "Twins?" she whispered, shocked. She hadn't had a scan yet. She didn't even know. Mama Joyce smirked. "It runs in their family. My sister had twins, and so did her mother. You'll see." What should have been joyful news became something heavy, almost frightening in the environment she was in. When she told Richard later, he only shrugged. "Well, if it's twins, it's twins. What can we do?" His indifference pierced her heart. Months later, after a long night of labor at the small clinic in the nearby town, Liz gave birth to two beautiful baby girls. Two perfect miracles. When she held them, tears filled her eyes. "Welcome, my angels," she whispered. But when Mama Joyce saw the babies, her face darkened instantly. "Girls," she said sharply. "Two girls." Liz felt her heart sink. "They're healthy," she murmured, trying to focus on the baby's tiny fingers. But Mama Joyce wasn't done. "Useless," she whispered loudly enough for Liz to hear. "My son needs a boy. A legacy. These ones, what are they for?" Liz felt a tear drop onto her baby's blankets. She turned away, clutching them protectively, shielding them from the venom she could not escape. Richard, instead of correcting his mother, simply looked overwhelmed. He didn't say a word in Liz's defense. He didn't celebrate his daughters. He didn't even hold them for long. Liz realized that day that she was truly alone. Rumors began circulating in the village. Richard was seen with another woman, often. Liz overheard neighbors whispering about it as she walked to the shop. "She's expecting," one woman said. "I heard it's a boy," another added. "Richard just wanted a son," a third whispered. Liz felt her knees weaken. She had no strength to confront him. She was caring for two infants, recovering from childbirth, and enduring daily cruelty from the woman who ruled the compound. Mama Joyce became worse. She insulted Liz openly. She complained about the babies crying. She criticized Liz's cooking, cleaning, and even breastfeeding. "You are cursed," she shouted one morning. "You bring only girls." When the other woman finally gave birth to a son, the insults grew vicious. "See? That's what a real woman gives a man. A boy. A heir." She laughed cruelly. You're just here for sympathy." Liz's heart felt shredded. She had no peace, no support, no joy. Only her babies gave her strength to keep moving. One evening, after a loud quarrel filled with insults and venom, Mama Joyce stood in the doorway with a broom in her hand and thunder in her voice. Get out. Get out of my son's house. You and your two noisy girls leave." Liz froze, breathless. "Mama, please." "Out," the woman shouted, grabbing Liz's small bag and throwing it into the dirt. "Don't stand here wasting my air." With tears streaming down her face, Liz wrapped her babies on her back and chest, gathered the little she had, and stepped out of the compound. No Richard came to her rescue. No support came. No apology. Nothing. Only silence and heartbreak. Liz walked away, from the compound, from humiliation, from betrayal, step by trembling step. carrying her daughters and what remained of her dignity. She didn't know how she would survive, but she knew she had to. The night Liz left Richard's compound, the sky hung heavy with clouds, mirroring the weight in her heart. The moon hid behind the dark, and only the faint glow of lanterns from distant homesteads lit her path. Her feet trembled beneath her, and her back burned from carrying her daughters, but she walked on. The cold wind dried the tears on her cheeks, but the ache inside her grew sharper with every step. She was returning home, but she felt like a failure. Her childhood path seemed more foreign than ever. She remembered this same road where she and her siblings once ran barefoot, chasing shadows and laughter. Tonight, she felt like a stranger walking through her own memories, bruised, exhausted, and broken. Halfway home, little one on her back whimpered. "Hush, my angel," Liz whispered shakily. "Mama is here. Mama won't leave you." Another tiny cry rose from her chest, where the second baby was wrapped tightly. Liz kissed both foreheads. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I'm so sorry." She wasn't apologizing for leaving. She was apologizing for the world the babies had been born into, a world that had rejected them before they could even speak their first words. Ruth was preparing supper when she heard footsteps outside. She lifted the lantern and walked out. "Liz," she called. Liz's knees buckled at the sound of her mother's voice. "Mama." Ruth rushed forward, catching her daughter before she hit the ground. She lifted the lantern higher and gasped. My child. What happened? Where are you coming from at this hour?" "And the babies." Liz broke down completely. The tears she had held back for months flooded out. "They chased me away," she sobbed. "Mama, they chased me away." Ruth held her tightly. "Shoo, you're home now. You're safe. Come inside." Sam appeared at the doorway, his face filled with concern as he saw his daughter in tears and the twins clinging to her. He said nothing, but his eyes softened, a rare show of affection from the man who seldom displayed it. The twins were taken inside and wrapped in warm blankets. Ruth prepared tea for Liz, her hands shaking with sorrow and anger. "Those people," Ruth muttered under her breath as she stroked Liz's hair, "they will answer to God." Liz lay her head on her mother's lap, exhausted, relieved, and terrified all at once. The next morning, reality hit hard. Liz woke to the sound of chickens clucking, Caleb chopping firewood, and Amanda singing softly as she swept the compound. Her childhood life had not paused. She had simply been thrown back into it. Now, there were two babies depending on her. Food was scarce. Money was tight. Space was limited, but Ruth and Sam made room, literally and emotionally. Liz slept in the small inner room with her twins, waking up every 2 hours to breastfeed, soothe, or change them. Her body grew weaker from lack of rest, but her spirit refused to break. The village's whispers hung in the air. "Did you hear Richard chased her away? She gave birth to girls, only shame. And he already has a son with the new woman." Liz walked with her head down, but inside, seeds of resilience were beginning to take root. To support her girls, Liz began helping Ruth at the grocery kiosk. She strapped one baby to her back and carried the other in a sling as she sold tomatoes, onions, maize flour, and sugar. Some days, her body felt like collapsing. Some days, she cried in the back of the kiosk, but she always returned the next morning. Ruth noticed the strength in her daughter, the fire that Heartbreak had ignited. "God will see you through," she often whispered. And he did. One afternoon, months later, as Liz sat outside sorting beans, a woman approached the kiosk. She had come from town, well-dressed, confident, and warm in her demeanor. "Are you Liz?" she asked. Liz nodded. "I've heard about your situation. I'm sorry for what you went through, but I have an offer for you." Liz looked up, confused. "We are looking for someone hardworking to help supply vegetables to a new restaurant I'm opening. Your mother speaks highly of you. Will you be interested?" The world seemed to freeze for a moment. Liz stared at the woman, this stranger God had sent, and a spark lit in her chest. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, I'm interested." The job was demanding, but it paid well. Liz woke at dawn, carried produce to the road, waited for the matatu, and delivered it to town. The twins remained with Ruth and Amanda while she worked. For the first time in months, Liz felt hope. For the first time since she left Richard's house, she felt alive. She was still fragile. She still hurt. But she was rising. Slowly, painfully, but unmistakably. Her story was shifting, and this was only the beginning. Richard stepped out of his father's compound, a small suitcase in hand. The dirt road shimmered under the early light, and the chirping of birds seemed almost mocking, a sharp contrast to the turmoil inside him. He paused at the edge of the yard, glancing back at the home he had left behind, Liz and the twin girls sleeping in the care of Mama Joyce's harsh supervision. He had been handed a choice, and he had chosen what he considered the practical path. His heart felt strangely heavy, but he pushed it aside. Eva awaited in the city with their newborn son, and a new job that promised him advancement, status, and a life free from the chaos of the village. Richard's footsteps were measured, each one carrying both excitement and unease. He had promised himself that he was doing what he had to do for his future. But deep down, there was a quiet, gnawing unease. He thought of Liz and the twins, alone in the cold, vulnerable to their mother's cruelty. They'll manage, he told himself. Liz is strong. She'll survive. And yet, a part of him knew that leaving them behind was not just practical, it was permanent. He would not return. The compound, the village, the life he shared with Liz. Everything was slipping away as he moved toward the city, toward Eva and the child she carried. By mid-afternoon, Richard arrived in the bustling city, a place of unfamiliar sounds, moving cars, and tall buildings that seemed to touch the sky. He found Eva waiting at the edge of the street near her small apartment, holding their infant son, wrapped snugly in a blanket. "Richard," she said, relief and expectation in her voice. "You made it." He nodded, handing her the suitcase. "I did. It's time we started fresh." Eva's smile was radiant, but there was a hardness in her eyes, an understanding that life had been difficult, that they would need to work to carve their future together. Richard felt a surge of pride and anticipation. Here, he could build the life he had always wanted, free from the village's small-minded squabbles and constant judgment. Richard and Eva moved quickly. She had secured a job at a reputable company, and he found work through connections he had cultivated over the years. Their son became the center of their days, a symbol of hope and new beginnings. Richard threw himself into work, ambition his constant companion, while Eva managed both home and child with quiet efficiency. The city was different from the village in every way, faster, louder, and full of endless opportunity. Richard thrived professionally, climbing the ladder and enjoying the perks of city life. And yet, occasionally, he caught himself thinking of Liz, of the twins, of the woman he had left behind, forced into hardship and struggle. Those thoughts were fleeting. He pushed them aside, telling himself it was better this way. Better for him, better for Eva, better for their child. While Richard built a life in the city, Liz struggled in the village, clinging to the small threads of hope that sustained her. She carried the twins through hunger, cold, and humiliation, finding courage she never knew she possessed. Every step she took to survive, every bit of effort to build a future, was a silent testament to her strength. Meanwhile, Richard's life moved forward smoothly, cushioned by ambition and privilege. But life in the city was not without its own tensions. He and Eva clashed occasionally, differences in expectations, small misunderstandings, and the pressures of work. Yet these were challenges he had chosen to face, far different from the raw, painful struggle Liz endured every day in the village. From a distance, Richard imagined Liz's world, the small home of her parents, the tiny feet of the twins running about, the quiet resilience in her eyes. He thought, sometimes, of what might have been, but never long enough to disrupt the path he had chosen. His life had moved on, with Eva and their son as constants. The chapter of Liz and the twins' life in the village was closed, written in hardship, tears, and endurance. For Richard, the new chapter had begun, a life of opportunity, of comfort, and of ambition. But the weight of what he left behind lingered in silent corners, shadows that would never fully disappear, even in the brightness of the city. While Richard settled into city life with Eva and their son, Liz's days in the village were a mixture of struggle, determination, and unexpected opportunity. Each morning, she woke before dawn, washing, cooking, and tending to her twins with the quiet strength of a woman who refused to be broken. Every cry of joy and faith was a reminder that she had a reason to keep moving forward. Yet, in those early months, life was painfully hard. Food was scarce. Money was almost non-existent. Every small success, selling a basket of vegetables at the market, mending clothes for neighbors, or helping her mother in the kiosk, felt monumental. Liz clung to the hope that her determination would one day open a door to a better life. In contrast, Richard's city existence was cushioned and structured. Eva's apartment was modest but clean, with space for their son to crawl and play. Richard's job offered a steady paycheck, and the streets were filled with opportunity. He dressed neatly, moved with confidence, and mingled with colleagues who admired his ambition. But beneath the polished surface, tension quietly simmered. The city's demands were relentless. Eva's expectations, while reasonable, sometimes clashed with his pride. The long hours at work left him exhausted. Their son's cries at night, though softer than the struggles Liz endured, brought stress and moments of frustration he hadn't anticipated. Richard began to feel, faintly, the weight of choices he had made in haste. He had left Liz and the twins in the cold, thinking it would simplify life. Yet simplicity came with a subtle, gnawing emptiness. Let's jump right back to Liz's world, but before we do, kindly consider subscribing and liking this video. Also, tell us what you think of this story in the comment section. The restaurant job marked the beginning of a new chapter in Liz's life. A chapter woven with early mornings, grit, exhaustion, and a determination she never knew lived inside her. Every day, before the first rooster crowed, Liz was awake. She tiptoed around the small room so as not to wake the twins, wrapped a lasso around her waist, and prepared the morning deliveries. Her hands were rough from the crates, her shoulders tense from carrying sacks, her back ached constantly. But her spirit, it was rising, slowly but surely. The woman who hired her, Madame Teresa, quickly became a mentor. She was tough, sharp-eyed, and always in motion. She demanded quality, punctuality, and consistency. People will respect you when they see your work ethic, she told Liz one morning as they sorted tomatoes. Not your story. Your story is for God to handle. Those words stuck to Liz's heart like glue. She worked harder, listened more, learned faster. Soon, she wasn't just delivering vegetables. She was managing orders, advising on the best suppliers, and earning trust. Teresa began increasing her pay, and Liz saved every coin she could. For her girls, for her future, for the life she deserved. One hot afternoon, while Liz was waiting for Teresa to finish a meeting, she overheard two restaurant owners talking. "We're looking for a consistent produce supplier," one said. "Our last one ran off with the deposit." Liz felt her heartbeat pick up. Something tugged inside her, courage, or maybe faith. When they stepped outside, she approached them. "Excuse me," she began nervously. "I supply produce. If you give me a chance, I won't disappoint you." They glanced at her, a young woman, thin from struggle but steady in her voice. "Do you have a business?" one asked. "No, not officially," Liz admitted. "But I have experience, and I will deliver." Her honesty impressed them. "Come tomorrow with a sample," the man said. "If your quality is good, we'll talk." That night, Liz didn't sleep. She kept replaying the conversation, praying silently as she rocked her daughters to sleep. "God, please, let this be my breakthrough." The next morning, Liz delivered the freshest vegetables she could find, washed, sorted, and beautifully arranged. The men were stunned. "You did all this yourself?" "Yes," Liz said sheepishly. "You're hired." Just like that, Liz had her first major contract. When she told Teresa, the older woman smiled proudly. "You've earned it," she said. "Go. Fly higher." Liz hugged her tightly. Tears welled in her eyes. For the first time in years, they were tears of gratitude, not pain. With the new contract, Liz's income increased sharply. She wasn't rich, but she was no longer drowning. She bought you a small refrigerator, you a new bed, you good clothes for the twins, you extra stock for resale. Her confidence blossomed like rain-fed flowers. Even villagers whispered in surprise, "Is that Liz? She looks different. She's glowing these days. Hard work is paying off." But Liz didn't seek their approval. She worked. She prayed. She showed up for her daughters. She stayed in her lane. 2 years passed. Her business grew. She learned how to track expenses, negotiate prices, and build relationships with suppliers and customers. Then one afternoon, as she sat outside the kiosk counting money, she felt something shift inside her. She didn't want to stay in the village forever. She didn't want the girls to grow up with the same limitations. She wanted a fresh start. Far from Richard, far from Mama Joyce, far from the wounds. She wanted a new life. A life in the city. Liz approached her parents one evening. "Mama, Baba, I'm thinking of moving to the city." Ruth looked at her daughter with quiet pride. Sam simply nodded. "You've outgrown this place," he said. "Go where your destiny calls you." Liz smiled through tears. She wasn't running away anymore. She was moving toward her future. And so it begins. The next chapter of her life would be bigger. New roads, new battles, new triumphs. She didn't know it yet, but the city would change everything. Her home, her career, her confidence, even her love life. And the man she believed she had left behind would unexpectedly walk back into her world. Not alone, not triumphant, but broken. Her story was just beginning. The city arrived like a thunderclap, both dazzling and overwhelming. The streets hummed with energy, the sounds of engines and shouting vendors blending into a constant symphony. Buildings towered overhead, casting long shadows that stretched across the sidewalks. People moved fast, impatiently, carrying bags, dreams, and burdens. For Liz, every step she took was a mixture of awe and fear. The village had taught her resilience, patience, and resourcefulness, but the city demanded reinvention. With her savings, Liz rented a modest house in a quiet estate. The walls were bare, the floors cold, and the kitchen cramped, but it was hers. Every corner, every creaking floorboard was a reminder that she had survived, endured, and earned this small victory. She unpacked her belongings carefully, stacking the girls' clothes neatly, setting up their beds, and making space for their toys. Every little act of organization was a declaration. This is our life now. We belong here. Liz enrolled the twins in a good private school, their small hands gripping hers tightly on the first morning. Their wide-eyed excitement reminded her why she had fought so hard. She whispered under her breath as they walked into the schoolyard. "You will never feel small again. Mama will make sure of that." Once the girls were settled, Liz turned her attention to work. She remembered every lesson from her years helping her mother and managing small deliveries. She opened a savings account, researched suppliers, and made calls to potential customers. Her first investment was a small machine for her Elegance Beauty Parlor, a business she had dreamed of since the village days. She wanted more than just income. She wanted independence, self-respect, and the ability to give her daughters a life free from fear or judgment. Every morning, she dressed smartly, her hair neatly tied, the corners of her mind always alert to opportunity. By evening, she returned home, tired but satisfied, the hum of possibility in her chest. City life was nothing like the village. Traffic snarls replaced dusty roads, streetlights replaced lanterns, supermarkets replaced kiosks. It was both exhilarating and exhausting. She had to learn new rules, navigate new people, and, most importantly, protect her daughters from dangers she had never imagined. Yet Liz thrived. The challenges that might have broken others only sharpened her instincts. She became faster, smarter, and more confident with each passing day. One sunny afternoon, while walking in the estate with the twins, Liz noticed a familiar face across the street. Her heart froze. It was Richard. Older, a little worn, but unmistakable. Her pulse quickened, and for a fleeting second, the years of pain, humiliation, and betrayal returned. She watched quietly as he passed, a woman on his arm, 2 children trailing behind him. Liz realized that the man who had once abandoned her now lived a life parallel to hers. He had his family. She had hers. And for the first time, she felt something she hadn't in years: peace. She smiled softly, holding her daughter's hands tighter. This is our life now. Not his. Ours. The city was teaching Liz more than independence. It was teaching her courage, self-worth, and the power of determination. She no longer relied on anyone's approval. She built, she saved, she thrived. Her Elegance Beauty Parlor began attracting clients, slowly but surely. Her girls flourished in school. Her confidence grew, and for the first time in a long time, Liz felt unstoppable. She wasn't the same girl who had walked out of Richard's compound. She was stronger, wiser, and unshakable. A new world had given her a new life. And in this life, Liz was the one writing the rules. The city had once felt like a giant towering above Liz, but months passed, and she began to feel its rhythm in her bones. The fear that had shadowed her first days slowly softened into familiarity. Every success, no matter how small, stitched another piece of confidence into her spirit. Elegance Beauty Parlor was still small, tucked between a tailoring shop and a phone accessories stall, but it pulsed with promise. The first clients were curious walk-ins. Some came because they were passing by, others because they liked Liz's warm smile and calm demeanor. Soon enough, they returned and brought their friends. "Your hands are gifted," one woman said after a facial. Another whispered, "You should increase your prices, dear. This work is premium." Every compliment felt like fuel. Every returning customer was proof that she was building something that mattered. Liz bought better equipment, improved the decor, added new services, and even invested in training to expand her skills. She studied online at night after putting the twins to bed, whispering to herself, "This business will give my daughters a future." For years, Liz had dreamed of the freedom a car could bring, not just for convenience, but for safety, dignity, and control over her movements. In the village, cars were luxuries meant for other people. But not anymore. She saved diligently and enrolled in a driving school. At first, she was nervous. The instructor's stern tone, the busy roads, the shifting gears, everything seemed overwhelming. But Liz persisted. Day after day, she practiced until her fear turned into familiarity. The first time she drove on a major road without trembling, she felt a surge of pride rise in her chest. And when she finally passed the driving test, she held the license against her heart and whispered, "Look at us now." After months of saving and carefully planning, Liz made one of the biggest decisions of her life. She bought a car. A reliable, well-maintained machine that gleamed under the estate streetlights when she drove it home for the first time. The girls squealed with joy, running around the car, touching the bonnet, asking to sit inside. "Mama, we are rich now," one of them shouted. Liz laughed through tears, not because the car made her rich, but because it represented everything she had survived. She had walked out of humiliation and poverty. She had carried her girls on her back through pain and uncertainty. Now she could drive them anywhere, safely, proudly, freely. With the car, clients could book home services. Business expanded. By year-end, Liz moved Elegance Beauty Parlor to a bigger space, one with soft lighting, stylish mirrors, and a comforting ambience. It became the kind of place women visited not just for beauty, but for rest, laughter, and encouragement. Liz bloomed with it. Her daughters thrived in school, making friends, excelling in class, and bringing home drawings to decorate her salon. Clients adored Liz's humility, professionalism, and kindness. Her finances grew stable. Her confidence soared. But even as her world expanded, the past lingered at the edges, quiet but present. Richard had seen her. Not the broken girl he once abandoned, not the mother he dismissed, but a woman transformed. He watched from afar at first, shocked, humbled, perhaps ashamed, still entangled in a troubled marriage that echoed with fights and bitterness. His life had not become what he had imagined, and as fate would have it, he lived in the same estate. The estate was quiet that afternoon, sunlight slipping through the tall palm trees that lined the walkways. Liz was returning from the supermarket, her car parked neatly by the curb, the girls skipping ahead of her with carefree joy. It was a normal day, simple, peaceful. Then she heard it. "Liz." The voice froze her in place. Something in its tone, familiar yet distant, made her heart stumble. She turned slowly. There he was, Richard. He stood a few meters away, slightly breathless as if he had rushed after her. His shirt hung loosely on his frame, and fatigue seemed to pull at his eyes. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The silence stretched, thick and loaded, as memories flooded between them like ghosts resurrected. Liz felt the old pain flicker inside her, but it didn't control her anymore. She stayed calm, her posture straight, her grip on the grocery bag steady. Richard swallowed hard. Is it really you?" "Yes," she replied evenly. "It's me." Her voice surprised even her, steady, composed, untrembling. Richard tried to smile, but guilt tugged the corners of his mouth downward. "I didn't know you lived here." Liz raised her brow slightly. "I didn't know you did either." Awkward silence filled the space again. Children rode bicycles nearby. A woman watered her flowers. Birds chirped in a distant tree. The world carried on, oblivious to the quiet storm unfolding between them. He glanced at the twins, who had paused to stare curiously. "They've grown," he said softly. Liz followed his gaze, her heart tightening with memories of sleepless nights, hunger, pain, insults, and the countless sacrifices she had made alone. Yes, they have, she answered gently, but with a firmness that blocked any attempt at ownership. Richard looked down, shame washing over his face. Liz, I'm sorry. 2 words, late, weak, arriving years after the wounds had already scarred over. Liz didn't reply immediately. She let silence settle, forcing him to feel what she had carried alone for so long. What exactly are you sorry for? She finally asked. Richard hesitated, then exhaled deeply. For everything. For leaving you. For how my mother treated you. For abandoning the girls. His voice cracked, surprising them both. I thought I was doing the right thing then. But I was wrong. Very wrong. Liz watched him quietly. She didn't want revenge. She didn't want him to suffer. She simply wanted truth and closure. I survived, she said softly. And I healed. That's enough. Richard's breath shuddered. You look different. Stronger. I had to be, she replied. From behind Richard, a woman emerged, his wife. Her face was hard, worry etched into her features. She looked between Liz and Richard suspiciously. Are you coming or not? She snapped. Richard nodded quickly, stepping aside. The tension was visible, cracks in a marriage built on shaky ground. Liz didn't need to ask. She had heard enough from estate whispers. Their home was a battlefield of constant quarrels. The woman gave Liz a quick, assessing look before walking off, muttering something under her breath. Richard turned back one last time. If you ever need anything, if the girls ever need something, we're fine. Richard, Liz said gently but firmly. We've been fine. He nodded slowly, defeated, and walked away. Liz watched him disappear around the corner, and for the first time in years, she felt something unexpected, compassion. Not for the man he was, but for the man he never became. The twins tugged her arms, eager to go inside. Mama, who was that man? One of them asked innocently. Liz smiled softly and cupped their faces. Just someone from long, long ago. They accepted the answer and skipped into the house. Liz stood by the doorway for a moment, breathing deeply. Something heavy had lifted from her shoulders, an unspoken burden she had carried for years. The past had confronted her, and she had stood tall. She walked inside with her head high, her heart steady. A chapter had officially closed, and life, in its mysterious kindness, was preparing to open a new door. Life had settled into a gentle rhythm for Liz. Her business was stable, her daughters were thriving, her heart was calm. For the first time in years, she woke up each morning without fear or heaviness. Peace had finally found her, not through perfection, but through growth. Little did she know, love was quietly walking back toward her life. It happened on a Friday afternoon. Liz had just finished attending to her last client of the day. She locked up the salon and began walking toward the estate gate to catch a taxi. Her car was in the garage for routine servicing. As she hurried along, a white SUV slowed beside her. She stepped aside politely, but the driver rolled down the window. Liz, a deep, warm voice called out. She turned. A tall man stepped out of the car. Broad shoulders. Clean, simple style. A familiar smile that hit her heart like a distant memory. Caleb? She breathed, confused. He chuckled. No, not Caleb. But close. He spread his arms playfully. It's Daniel. Daniel from Gattero High. And suddenly, everything clicked. Daniel, her quiet, brilliant classmate, the boy who always borrowed her notes, the prefect who once defended her when a teacher scolded her unfairly, the guy everyone liked for his kindness. She covered her mouth in shock. Daniel. Oh my goodness, it's been years. Too many, he replied, his eyes warm. They stood by the roadside, laughing and talking as though no time had passed. Daniel had moved to the city years ago. He worked as a civil engineer, managed a small construction company, and was in the estate to review a project. I knew it was you, he said. You haven't changed, except you look stronger. Liz felt her cheeks warm. Life had taught her to accept compliments gracefully. And you look successful, she teased. They talked like old friends, their connection effortless. When he offered her a ride home, she agreed. They talked about childhood memories, teachers they feared, classmates who had disappeared into the world. With Daniel, conversation flowed freely, warm, genuine, and unforced. When they arrived at her house, her daughters rushed out, excited to see their mother. Daniel's face softened at the sight of them. "They're beautiful," he said. "And mischievous," she joked. He crouched to greet them, and the twins, surprisingly, warmed up to him instantly. It was rare. They were cautious around strangers, but something about Daniel made them comfortable. Liz noticed. Her heart noticed too. Over the next weeks, Daniel and Liz crossed paths more often. He would pass by the salon, bring snacks for the girls, assist her with errands, take her out for coffee after work, fix small things in her house without being asked. He didn't rush, he didn't force anything, that he simply showed up. Gently, consistently, respectfully. And Liz felt something she hadn't felt in years: safety. One evening, after dropping the twins at a playdate, Daniel drove Liz to a quiet restaurant overlooking the city. They talked deeply about pain, growth, childhood, and the future. Then he finally said what had been sitting in his heart. "Liz, I admire the woman you've become. The strength in you, the resilience, the kindness. You deserve happiness, real happiness. And I want to be a part of your life, if you'll let me." Liz looked at him, her eyes filling with emotion she hadn't allowed herself to feel in years. "Daniel, I'm afraid," she whispered. "I know," he replied softly. "And I'll walk at your pace. I'm not here to fix you, just to love you." Tears slipped down her cheeks, not out of sadness, but because his words felt like healing. She didn't say yes that night, but she didn't say no. Instead, she reached out and held his hand. And Daniel smiled, understanding everything without a single word. Love had found her, not with noise or dramatic declarations, but with patience, respect, and tenderness. A new beginning had begun. The rains had just ended that morning, leaving the estate washed clean and glistening. Drops of water clung to the hibiscus shrubs near the gate, and the air felt new, fresh, like something had shifted in the unseen. Liz couldn't explain it, but she woke up knowing the season ahead would be different. And it truly was. Daniel had become a constant presence in her life, not by force, not by pressure, but by gentle, intentional steps that made her heart soften day by day. He respected her boundaries, yet never hid the fact that he adored her. He showed up when he said he would. He kept his word. He listened. And most importantly, he loved her children like they were his own. It started with small things. One Saturday morning, Liz woke to the sound of laughter in the sitting room. For a moment her heart tightened. Motherhood had taught her to always be alert, but then she heard his voice. Daniel. He was sitting on the carpet with the girls, two small bowls of beads between them. He was helping them make friendship bracelets. Joy was wrapping pink beads on a string. Faith, ever the serious one, was carefully arranging hers in patterns. Daniel leaned back and looked at both girls with exaggerated seriousness. "Okay, who is going to make one for their mother? Because if she doesn't get one, I'm telling her." They burst into giggles. Liz stood quietly by the door, her throat tightening at the sight. She had prayed, silently, painfully, hopefully, for a man who wouldn't just see her children as an extension of her past, but as a precious part of her future. Daniel wasn't trying, he was simply doing. Being there, loving genuinely, sharing himself with them. When he noticed her, his face lit up in that way that still made her heart flutter. "Good morning, Mama Joy and Faith," he said with a grin. "We're making evidence that your children love you more than me." She laughed, a real, warm laugh she hadn't felt in years. As the weeks passed, their relationship settled into a beautiful rhythm. They cooked together. They talked for hours. They prayed together sometimes, timidly at first, then with growing confidence. One evening, while they were washing dishes after dinner, Daniel said quietly, "Liz, I don't want to be someone who just passes through your life. I want to stay. I want to build something real with you." She froze slightly, hands still in the soapy water. He continued, gently, "Not just with you, with the girls too. I love them. I love all of you." Her breath shook. No one had ever spoken love to her like that. Not as a demand, not as an apology, but as a promise. She rinsed her hands, turned to him slowly, and whispered, "Daniel, my life has had many storms. I don't want to drag you into something heavy." He wiped her hands dry with the kitchen towel, his touch warm and sure. "Liz, I'm not afraid of storms. I've walked through my own. God didn't bring me into your life to watch from afar." Her eyes filled with tears. For the first time in years, they were tears of relief, of release. She let herself lean into him, and Daniel held her like he had been waiting his whole life to do so. That night, Liz realized something profound. Love doesn't always arrive with fireworks. Sometimes it arrives softly, steady, patient, and deeply true. Daniel didn't try to replace the father her children had lost. He simply stepped into the empty spaces with love. He took the girls to the park on Sundays that he taught them how to play simple board games. He helped with homework. He sat through their tantrums. He clapped at every drawing they showed him, even the ones that made no sense. One evening, Joy looked up at him and said, "Uncle Daniel, are you going to marry Mummy?" Liz choked on her tea. Daniel froze, then smiled softly. "Why do you ask?" Joy shrugged. "Because you love her, and she smiles more when you are here." Faith, always observant, added, "And you fix things. We need someone who fixes things." Liz covered her face in embarrassment. Daniel just laughed quietly. But when his eyes met Liz's, something passed between them, something tender and certain. He knelt beside the girls and said softly, "If I ever marry your Mummy, it will be because all three of you said yes." The girls nodded enthusiastically and ran off to play. Liz stared at him, heart trembling. "Daniel, why are you so good?" He took her hand gently. "Because God gave me a second chance. And he gave me you." Weeks flowed into months, and their home slowly began to feel like something new. Warmer, softer, safer. Liz found herself glowing in ways she never knew she could. Her beauty parlor flourished. Her daughters thrived. Her laughter returned. Her heart healed. And Daniel, steady, tender Daniel, became the missing piece she never thought she would find. He didn't rescue her, he didn't complete her. He simply joined her journey and allowed love to grow naturally between them all. Liz often lay awake at night, staring at the peaceful faces of her daughters and whispering prayers of gratitude. God had turned her ashes into beauty, her pain into strength, her brokenness into testimony. She had found a home built on love, a love that embraced her, her past, her children, her dreams. This was the chapter she didn't see coming, but it was the chapter she had always deserved. The sun rested low over the city skyline, casting warm gold over the estate. It was a quiet Saturday evening, the kind that made the world feel gentle and kind. Liz had just closed the beauty parlor, her heart full after a day of satisfied clients and laughter with her staff. Business was blooming. Her life was blooming. But she had no idea that tonight, her future was about to unfold in a way she never imagined. When she walked into the house, she noticed something strange. The living room lights were off, but a soft glow flickered from the dining area. Soft music played in the background, gentle, soulful guitar strings. "Girls," she called out. No answer. She stepped carefully, her heart beginning to pound with curiosity. Then she saw it. The dining table was beautifully set. White plates, gold-lined glasses, and a small vase with fresh lilies. Candles flickered softly, casting warm shadows across the room. Liz blinked in surprise. She hadn't planned this. She hadn't cooked anything. She hadn't decorated. Her breath hitched. "Daniel?" she whispered. He appeared from the hallway, dressed neatly in a navy blue shirt. His smile was calm, yet nervous in a way she had never seen before. "Welcome home, Liz," he said softly. Her cheeks warmed. "What's all this?" He stepped closer. "I made dinner." "Well, attempted." The girls helped. Liz's heart flipped. "Where are they?" He chuckled. "Away on a very important assignment. They're with Mama Anita for the evening. I wanted us to talk. Just the two of us." Her breath caught again. Something was happening. Something big. "Daniel, you're making me nervous." He smiled, gently touching her hand. "Good. Then I'm doing this right." They sat together, and though the food wasn't perfect, slightly burnt in one corner, overly seasoned in another, the evening was perfect. They talked about everything. You their childhoods. You the journey that led them back together. You the girls. You her business. You his growing career. You God's unexpected timing. And through it all, Daniel looked at her with a tenderness that made her heart feel like soft clay melting in warmth. Halfway through dinner, he reached across the table, took her hand, and said, "Liz, there's something I've been carrying in my heart. Something I've wanted to say, but I needed the right moment." Her pulse quickened. He stood up slowly. "Liz," he began, voice steady but eyes shining. "When I found you again, I didn't just find a friend from the past. I found a woman whose strength humbled me. I found kindness shaped by storms. I found a mother who loved so fiercely, She would tear the world apart for her children. Liz felt tears prick her eyes. I found a home I never knew I needed. Her hand flew to her mouth as her heart pounded. Daniel took a deep breath and sank onto one knee. All my life, I've prayed for a love that was real. A love built on trust, respect, and faith. And God answered me. Through you. Daniel, she whispered, voice trembling. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Liz Mwangi, he continued, voice soft and full of emotion. Will you allow me to love you for the rest of our lives? Will you let me be a father to your girls, a partner in your dreams, and a man who chooses you? Every single day, he opened the box. Inside was a simple, elegant ring that sparkled softly in the candlelight. Will you marry me? Liz felt her knees weaken. Her heart raced. Her vision blurred with tears. She had been abandoned, humiliated, shamed, belittled, crushed. And yet here she stood, seen, valued, cherished, chosen. Her hand trembled as she whispered, yes, yes, Daniel. 1,000 times yes. He let out a breath he didn't realize he'd been holding and slipped the ring onto her finger that it fit perfectly, like it had been waiting for her. He rose to his feet, and Liz fell into his arms as their tears mixed, hers of healing, his of gratitude. In that moment, the house felt like it breathed, like the walls themselves recognized the miracle unfolding within them. Later that night, the girls returned home, and the moment they spotted the ring on Liz's finger, they screamed in excitement. Are we getting a daddy? Are we getting a wedding? Can I wear pink? Can we walk with flowers? Daniel knelt to their level and said gently, if your mummy agrees, I would love nothing more than to be in your lives forever. And the girls tackled him with hugs. Liz stood at the doorway, hands over her heart, tears slipping down her cheeks again. She had not only found love, she had found family. A home not built from survival, but built from love, choice, and divine timing. The chapter that followed would be one she never thought she would live. But now, she was ready. The days following the proposal felt like sunlight had settled permanently inside Liz's chest. Every morning she woke with a new sense of peace, a sense of belonging she had never tasted before. Even the girls walked around the house with brighter smiles, announcing to anyone who cared to listen, Mummy is getting married. We're getting a daddy. Their excitement filled the home like music. But one important moment still awaited them, meeting Daniel's family. Daniel's parents lived in the nearby town, a warm and respected couple known for their humility and strong faith. When he called to share the news, his mother had nearly cried over the phone. Bring her home, my son, she said gently. We want to meet the woman God has brought into your life. Still, Liz felt nervous. It wasn't just her anymore. It was her children too. She feared judgment, questions, or the sting of rejection, experiences that had scarred her deeply. Daniel noticed her tension as they prepared for the visit. He gently touched her cheek. You and the girls are my family now. Anyone who loves me will love you. Trust me. She wanted to believe him, and she did. They arrived at Daniel's parents' home on a bright Sunday afternoon. The compound was tidy, with rose bushes lining the walkway and a mango tree swaying gently in the breeze. Daniel's mother, Mama Ruth, stood at the door with open arms. His father, Baba Samuel, smiled warmly beside her. Welcome, welcome, Mama Ruth said, embracing Liz with unexpected tenderness, the kind that made Liz's throat tighten instantly. Liz had not been embraced like that by an older woman in years, not since her own mother, not since her wounds. The girls shyly stepped forward, and Mama Ruth bent to their level. Oh, look at these beautiful angels, she exclaimed softly. What are your names? I'm Joy, one whispered. And I'm Faith, the other added. Ah. The mother gasped gently, placing a hand on her heart. Such perfect names. God truly has his hand on this family. Daniel shot Liz a warm smile. She exhaled a breath she didn't know she'd been holding. Lunch was an experience Liz would never forget. Baba Samuel prayed a gentle prayer of blessing over the meal, and over the new family God was forming. N01 asked about her past. N01 judged. N01 looked at her daughters differently. Instead, they asked about her business, how the girls were settling into school, and how they could support the coming marriage. At one point, Mama Ruth took Liz's hand and said quietly, My son has always had a good heart, but he has never smiled the way he does with you. Thank you for bringing joy to his life. Tears filled Liz's eyes. For so long she had been told she brought trouble, shame, hardship. Yet here she was, celebrated for bringing joy. God had rewritten her identity through the mouths of strangers who were becoming family. After lunch, the girls ran outside to play. It didn't take long before they were laughing loudly with Daniel's nieces and nephews. They chased butterflies, shared mango slices under the tree, and played little games on the grass. Liz watched them through the window, her chest tightening with gratitude. For the first time in years, her children were simply children, safe, loved, wanted. Daniel came up behind her and wrapped an arm around her waist. "They fit right in," he murmured. She leaned into him. "So do I," she whispered, surprised by how true it felt. Later in the afternoon, Baba Samuel called Daniel aside, then turned to Liz. "Come, my daughter," he said warmly. "Sit with us." Her heart raced. Fathers-in-law had never been part of her world. This felt big, important. The three of them sat under the mango tree. Baba Samuel cleared his throat. "My son," he began, turning to Daniel. "When a man chooses a wife, he chooses his future. I taught you to look for a woman of strength and dignity. A woman who fears God. A woman who values family." He turned to Liz, his eyes kind. "You are that woman." Liz's eyes instantly filled with tears. "We receive you with open hearts," he continued. "And we receive your daughters as our own grandchildren. From today, this is their home too. No one will ever mistreat or reject them so long as we live." Liz covered her mouth with her hand, overwhelmed. She had never heard such acceptance. Mama Ruth nodded, placing her hand over Liz's. "My dear, you have suffered enough in this life. Let this home be a place of healing for you." Liz leaned forward and cried quietly. Tears she had held for years. Tears she had swallowed through storms and humiliation. Tears of finally being seen. Daniel held her hand the whole time. As the sun began to set, they all gathered for evening tea. The girls ran to Liz, excited and breathless. "Mummy, can we come again? Mama Ruth gave us mango juice. And she said she's our grandma." Liz smiled with tears threatening to fall again. "Yes, my loves. We will come again." When they finally drove home, Daniel squeezed her hand. "So, how do you feel?" he asked gently. Liz looked out at the road ahead, a road she never imagined she would walk with love beside her. "I feel like God gave me a second family," she whispered, "and a second chance at life." Daniel kissed her hand softly. "And this is just the beginning." The morning after their visit to Daniel's parents, the house was buzzing with excitement, not from Liz, but from the little humans who had practically memorized the word wedding overnight. "Mummy, when is it? Can we pick our dresses today? Will there be cake?" "A big one. And flowers." Liz laughed as she buttered slices of bread. "Calm down, my butterflies. We'll plan everything, one step at a time." But even she couldn't hide her smile. For years, life had been a long road of survival, of endurance, of pushing through pain. But now, she was planning something she once believed she would never have, a wedding built not on desperation or expectations, but on genuine, healing love. Daniel arrived around mid-morning with a notebook in hand. He grinned. "Are you ready for mission operation? Let's marry Liz." She covered her face, laughing. "You're too much." The girls rushed to him, chanting, "Daddy to be, Daddy to be." He lifted them both and hugged them tightly. When they all settled in the living room, Daniel opened the notebook. "Okay," he said dramatically. "Apparently weddings have steps. Many, many unnecessary ones. But we shall attempt organization." Liz rolled her eyes, smiling. "You're taking this very seriously." He looked at her with soft warmth. "You're worth taking seriously." Her heart fluttered, again. Daniel's first question was simple. "When do you want this wedding?" Liz paused. For a moment, she felt the weight of her past whispering. Once, she had planned a future with someone who had shattered her. Once, she had dreamed of a ceremony that turned into abandonment and humiliation. Daniel sensed her hesitation and gently touched her knee. "We don't have to rush," he murmured. "We can take it slow, or we can do it soon. Whatever brings you peace." She looked into his eyes, steady, gentle, patient. "I want a beautiful wedding," she whispered. "But I also want it soon. I don't want to wait years to call you my husband." His smile widened. "Then soon it is." They chose a date 3 months away, enough time to prepare without dragging the process. The girls clapped in excitement. 3 months. Liz had never pictured her wedding dress clearly. Her childhood dreams felt too far away. Her past relationship had erased the little hopes she once held. But now, she allowed herself to imagine. Soft lace, long sleeves, a flowing skirt, something elegant but modest. Something that reflected her reborn strength. Mama Ruth insisted on joining for dress shopping. "My daughter," she told Liz over the phone, "a bride should not choose alone." Liz's heart swelled at the inclusion. Creating the guest list became emotional. For every name Daniel added, Liz crossed out two. "Are you sure you don't want to invite them?" Daniel asked gently. Liz shook her head. "Some people cheered when I fell. They don't deserve to witness me rise." Daniel didn't push, he simply nodded. "It's your day? Invite love only." In the end, their list was small but meaningful. Family, close friends, her employees, his workmates, a few neighbors, and her siblings. Word traveled faster than fire in dry grass. Liz's family was overjoyed. Her father cried when she told him, holding her hands and whispering, "My daughter, God has remembered you." But not everyone welcomed the news with kindness. In Richard's mother's compound, the announcement stirred bitterness. "She's remarrying?" Mama Joyce snapped. "With those girls who caused me so much shame?" Neighbors whispered. Some hoped Liz would finally find happiness. Others feasted on gossip. But Liz no longer lived in that world. She had climbed out of it. She had built a new life, high above their noise. Still, the news ensured Richard heard it too. As the wedding plans progressed, the home transformed. The girls practiced walking with imaginary flower baskets. Mama Ruth dropped by with swatches of fabric. Mama Anita from church sent recipes for wedding cake testing. Daniel read endless articles titled "How Not to Panic Before Your Wedding." Liz's siblings visited so often the girls started calling them the committee. And for the first time in her life, Liz felt fully surrounded by love. Family love, friendship, community, and a partner who adored her. In the evenings, she often sat on the couch, watching Daniel help the girls with homework and whispering to herself, "I never thought I'd live to see this kind of peace." But here she was, living it, breathing it, owning it. With the dates set, the plans in motion, and joy filling every corner of her life, Liz felt something she hadn't felt since childhood. Hope. Pure, unfiltered hope. Her past no longer defined her. Her scars no longer owned her story. This marriage wasn't her redemption. God had already redeemed her. This marriage was a gift, a celebration, a new beginning. The family she had always dreamed of was finally taking shape. Not by force, not by fate, but by divine alignment. And the best was yet to come. The sun hung low over the estate, painting the sky in soft pinks and golds. Liz was in the middle of finalizing the floral arrangements for her wedding when the phone rang. She picked it up, expecting her wedding planner, a client, or perhaps Daniel. Instead, her heart sank at the name flashing on the screen, Richard Mwangi. For a moment, she froze. Her fingers tightened around the phone. Memories of years of pain and humiliation flooded back. The compound, Mama Joyce's cruel words, Richard's absence when she needed him most. She almost hung up, but something inside whispered, "Face it once. Be done with it." She answered, her voice steady but cautious. "Hello?" Richard's voice was hesitant, almost apologetic. "Liz, I heard about the wedding. Congratulations." Liz paused. Her grip on the phone tightened. "Thank you," she said simply. There was a long silence. Finally, he continued, his tone faltering. I just wanted to see if the girls are okay. I want to see them before you get married." Liz's heart skipped. A part of her wanted to hang up, scream, tell him he had no right. But another part, the part that had healed through patience, prayer, and love, responded with calm strength. "The girls are well, and they are happy. You're welcome to see them," she said quietly, "but not for your sake. For theirs. And it has to be scheduled, supervised, and short. Nothing else." Richard's sigh was audible, heavy with something Liz couldn't name. "I understand. I'll follow your rules." She hung up, hands trembling slightly. But this time, the tremble wasn't fear. It was power, the power of someone who had survived storms and had finally reclaimed her life. Later that evening, Liz shared the call with Daniel. He listened intently, never interrupting, holding her hand as she spoke. "So he's back," Daniel said softly. "Yes," Liz admitted. "But I'm not afraid. Not anymore." He smiled, brushing a stray strand of hair from her face. You've done the hard work, Liz. You've healed. You've built a life, a home, a family. Nothing from the past can take that away. She nodded, feeling Daniel's reassurance wrap around her like a protective shield. Besides, he added with a teasing grin, he's showing up late in the game. Too late. Liz laughed softly, the tension in her chest easing. The next day, Richard arrived at the estate, escorted by a neutral relative. Liz met him at the garden gate, Daniel and the girls nearby. Richard's eyes fell immediately on his daughters, and for a moment, Liz felt the old ache, but it didn't linger. "Hi, my girls," he said gently. Joy and Faith ran into his arms cautiously. Liz watched silently, Daniel beside her, her hand in his. She felt no jealousy, no anger, just clarity. Richard was their father, yes, but he was no longer their protector or her anchor. That role belonged to Daniel and to herself. Richard spoke briefly, asking questions, smiling at small accomplishments. Then, after a short visit, he departed. When the gate closed behind him, Daniel wrapped an arm around Liz's waist. "You handled that perfectly," he whispered. "I did what I had to," Liz said, leaning into him. "And it's over. Finally over." Daniel kissed the top of her head. "The past is gone. Your future starts now." And for the first time in years, Liz truly believed it. That evening, as the sun dipped behind the horizon, Liz sat on the porch, watching the girls play in the yard. Daniel joined her, handing her a cup of tea. "They're happy," he said softly. "Yes," Liz replied, eyes shining. "Because we're finally free. Free from the old wounds. Free to love. Free to live." Daniel took her hand in his, and soon, he whispered, "We'll celebrate a new beginning. A home built on love, with no past shadows to darken it." Liz smiled, letting the peace wash over her. Her heart had faced the storm, endured the trials, and now, it was ready, truly ready, for the joy that awaited. And somewhere deep inside, she whispered a quiet prayer of gratitude. "Thank you, God, for the life I never thought I'd have, the love I never thought I'd find, and the family I now call my own." The stage was set, the past had knocked one last time, and she had answered, not with fear, but with strength. The wedding, and a new life, was just around the corner. The morning air was crisp and fragrant with the scent of fresh flowers. Sunlight spilled over the estate, catching the petals of the roses, lilies, and orchids that had been arranged the night before. It was the day Liz had dreamed of, though she hadn't dared dream it so fully, her wedding day. The house buzzed with activity, her daughters laughing as they tried on tiny flower girl dresses, her bridesmaids fussing over final touches, and Daniel moving calmly through the chaos, reassuring everyone with his quiet presence. Liz stood by the bedroom window, dressed in a gown of ivory lace that flowed like liquid elegance around her. Her hair was pinned with small pearls that glimmered in the morning light. She held a cup of tea in her trembling hands and let herself breathe. It was surreal. For years, her life had been filled with survival, pain, and constant uncertainty. Now, she felt a stillness in her chest she hadn't known in a long time. She was exactly where she was meant to be. Daniel entered quietly, kneeling behind her to adjust the veil slightly. "You look radiant," he whispered to Liz's eyes filled with tears. "And you calm as ever." He smiled softly. "I have to be calm. I can't have my bride panicking." They shared a quiet moment, holding hands, simply savoring the life they had built, a life full of love, hope, and second chances. As guests began arriving, the estate hummed with laughter, greetings, and warm congratulations. Liz's siblings, Joe, Caleb, and Amanda, were beaming. The girls ran around, proudly showing off their dresses, excited to be part of something magical. Daniel's parents, Baba Samuel and Mama Ruth, greeted Liz with loving embraces, reassuring her that she was fully accepted as part of their family. She felt tears prick her eyes. Here she was, surrounded by people who loved her, who had chosen joy over judgment. Even her closest friends from the village, now part of her new life, had traveled to witness her happiness. It was a day where all the love she had longed for converged in one space. When the music began, Liz's heart thumped like a drum. Hand in hand with her father, she walked slowly down the aisle, each step measured, each breath sacred. Her daughters held her other hand, little fingers entwined with hers, wide-eyed at the scene around them. At the front stood Daniel, waiting with a calm smile, eyes glimmering with tears. The moment she reached him, he took her hands gently in his. "You're here," he whispered. "I am," she replied. "And I'm ready." The officiant began, speaking words that echoed Liz's journey. The trials, the healing, the love, and the second chances. The vows they exchanged were heartfelt and real. No fluff, no pretense, only truth. "I promise to honor you," Daniel said, "to love you and your daughters, to protect our home, and to choose you every day." Liz's voice was steady but filled with emotion. "I promise to love you, to trust you, to build with you a home filled with laughter, faith, and joy. I give my heart to you and to our family." The rings slipped on, glimmering in the sunlight, sealing promises made not out of desperation, but out of pure, intentional love. The reception was vibrant with color, music, and laughter. Joy and Faith danced with Daniel's nieces and nephews, spinning in perfect little circles. Liz and Daniel shared their first dance as a married couple, swaying gently as the world around them blurred. Dinner followed, full of laughter, stories, and heartfelt speeches. Both families spoke of love, resilience, and the miracle of finding happiness after storms. Liz felt an overwhelming gratitude. Her life had been rewritten, her family rebuilt, and her heart fully restored. As the stars began to twinkle in the night sky, Liz slipped away to the balcony, the soft wind brushing her face. Daniel joined her silently, wrapping an arm around her shoulder. "Do you feel it?" he asked softly. "Feel what?" she replied, smiling. "This, all of it. Our life, our family, our love." She leaned against him, heart full. "Yes," she whispered. "It feels like home." Daniel kissed the top of her head. "It is home, Liz, and it always will be, built on love, patience, and faith." The night ended in quiet joy, under the stars, with laughter echoing across the estate, and hearts full of gratitude. Liz had survived betrayal, endured hardship, and weathered storms. And now, she was living proof that love, patience, and resilience could rewrite any story. Her past no longer defined her. Her future was waiting, bright, strong, and full of possibilities. And in Daniel's arms, with her daughters by her side, Liz finally knew what it meant to be truly home. The first months of marriage were a whirlwind of joy, adjustment, and quiet reflection. Liz often caught herself staring at the girls, Joy and Faith, watching them laugh, play, and sometimes bicker, and feeling a deep sense of gratitude. She had never imagined that she could experience such fullness of heart, a husband who adored her, daughters who were thriving, and a home filled with laughter. Daniel fit seamlessly into their world, not as a replacement for anyone, but as someone who enhanced it. He cheered at their school recitals, helped with homework, and even donned a makeshift chef's hat to prepare pancakes on Sunday mornings. Life's surprises didn't end there. One quiet evening, as the girls slept tucked in their colorful beds, Daniel turned to Liz with a twinkle in his eye. "I have something to ask," he said softly. Liz tilted her head, sensing the weight behind his words. "You've given me a family, a home, and love beyond measure," he continued. "I want us to grow even more. Are you ready to give us one more blessing?" Her eyes widened as she realized what he meant. Tears pricked her eyes. "Yes," she whispered, her voice trembling with joy. "Yes, Daniel." The months that followed were a mix of anticipation, tenderness, and wonder. Liz often marveled at her body's changes, the fluttering kicks from within reminding her that life could still surprise her, even after everything she had endured. With her business thriving, her daughters excelling in school, and Daniel by her side, Liz felt grounded in ways she never had before. Yet, preparing for a new baby brought fresh challenges. You baby-proofing the house. You reading parenting guides together. You choosing names. The girls were overjoyed, suggesting names with unrestrained creativity. "How about Sunshine?" Joy proposed. "Or Rainbow?" added Faith. Liz and Daniel laughed, gently guiding them toward names that were meaningful yet beautiful. Pregnancy brought new rhythms to their household. Liz moved slower, leaned on Daniel more often, and embraced quiet moments of reflection. Daniel, ever patient, never once complained. He carried groceries, painted the nursery, and sang softly to the girls before bedtime. During this season, Liz felt an inner shift. Her past no longer whispered in fear or sorrow. Instead, It lingered only as a quiet reminder of her resilience. Every heartbeat of her unborn child felt like confirmation that life had a way of redeeming even the most painful chapters. The arrival of the baby drew everyone closer. Joy and Faith became gentle, protective, and incredibly proud older sisters. Daniel's parents marveled at the bond forming between the girls and their new sibling, delighting in the laughter that now filled the home day and night. Liz often caught Daniel watching them all quietly, his eyes soft, lips curved in a peaceful smile. She realized that the man she had once loved from afar had become a partner in the truest sense. Fully invested, fully present, fully devoted. When the day finally came, and Liz gave birth to a healthy baby boy, the house seemed to exhale in unison. Joy and Faith pressed their small hands gently against their new brother's crib, whispering promises of protection and play. Daniel stood beside Liz, tears in his eyes, holding her hand with unshakable love. "This is our family," he said softly. "All of it. Every piece of it. And we made it together." Liz looked at him, at her daughters, at the tiny life in her arms, and for the first time in her life, she felt complete. The past, the abandonment, the pain, the struggles, felt distant, like a storm that had passed long ago. What remained was light, love, and the beautiful chaos of a home built on faith, resilience, and unwavering love. As the sun set over the estate, casting a golden glow on their home, Liz whispered a prayer of gratitude. "Thank you, God, for guiding me, for teaching me patience, strength, and trust, for bringing love back into my life in ways I never imagined." She leaned back against Daniel, the girls laughing at something silly in the background, and the baby nestled against her chest. Her story, once full of heartbreak and struggle, had transformed into one of hope, redemption, and abundant joy. And for Liz, the journey of love and family had only just begun. Years had passed since the wedding day, yet Liz often paused in quiet moments to marvel at the life she had built. The small house in the city that once felt like a dream now pulsed with the rhythm of a full, vibrant family. The laughter of Joy, Faith, and their baby brother, now toddling about with curiosity, filled every corner. Liz often remembered the girl who had walked alone from Richard's compound, two tiny daughters clutched to her chest, hope a fragile ember in her heart. That girl had survived storms no one should endure, and yet here she was, not just surviving, but thriving. Daniel had grown into the role of a father and husband with unwavering devotion. Together, they had created a home built not on perfection, but on love, understanding, and patience. Every challenge, financial, emotional, or practical, had been met with teamwork and faith. Liz often found herself quietly observing her children as they played or laughed at Daniel's playful antics. And in those moments, she felt a deep gratitude for the life she had fought so hard to reclaim. She had learned that love was not only a feeling but a choice. Day after day, small acts of patience, kindness, and courage weaving a tapestry of family. Joy and Faith grew up with examples of resilience, faith, and compassion modeled before them. Liz and Daniel taught them not to fear hardships, but to trust in God and in themselves. The girls knew that setbacks were only temporary and that love, true love, was steady, patient, and unwavering. "Mommy," Joy asked one afternoon, "how did you stay so strong when you were sad?" Liz smiled, brushing a strand of hair from her daughter's face. "I remembered that God had a plan for me," she said softly. "And I believed that one day, Joy would find me again." And it did. Faith nodded, absorbing her mother's words. "So we can be strong too?" "Yes, my loves," Liz said, hugging them close. "And you always will be." Liz's Elegance Beauty Parlor had flourished, becoming a trusted hub in the city. She had built it not only as a business, but as a platform to empower women, offering mentorship and inspiration to young mothers who, like her, had faced hardships. Through her work, she found purpose beyond herself. She shared her story openly, not to dwell on the past, but to show that strength, resilience, and faith could rewrite even the darkest chapters of life. Some days, Liz thought of Richard and the life she had left behind. There was no bitterness, only clarity. What once caused pain now existed as a lesson, proof that God's timing and guidance could transform even the deepest wounds into wisdom, courage, and empathy. She whispered a prayer of forgiveness, not for him, but for herself, so that her heart would remain open, free to love fully without fear. Evenings were now her favorite part of the day. The family would gather in the living room, Daniel reading stories to the children, Joy and Faith teasing their baby brother, and Liz sitting quietly, soaking in the love around her. Sometimes, Daniel would take her hand, resting it on her heart. "Look at what we've built," he'd say softly. Liz would smile, feeling the truth in every word. "This is home," she'd reply. "Not just a house, but love. And it's ours." Liz understood that the greatest gift she could give her children wasn't wealth or status or even comfort. It was a life rooted in love, courage, and faith. Through her story, Joy, Faith, and their baby brother learned the power of resilience, the beauty of forgiveness, and the strength of a heart that chooses hope over despair. She had once been abandoned, humiliated, and alone. Now, she was surrounded by family, laughter, and joy. She had created a home where love was abundant, and where the next generation could grow strong, confident, and cherished. And as Liz tucked her children into bed one night, holding each of them close, she whispered a prayer of gratitude and a quiet promise to continue building a life full of love every single day. For Liz, for her family, and for all the hearts yet to come, the legacy of love had begun. Liz's path wasn't easy, but every tear, every setback, every silent prayer brought her to a place of healing and new beginnings. Her journey reminds us that we are stronger than we think, braver than we feel, and more loved than we know. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more stories that speak to the soul. Until next time, keep holding on to the light.